Hello and welcome to Life Reviewed. This is episode 2 and part 2 of my Planet of the Apes retrospective. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Beneath the Planet of the Apes from 1970. It was directed by Ted Post, written by Paul Dean and Mort Abrams, and it stars James Franciscus as Brent, Kim Hunter returns as Zira, Maurice Evans returns as Dr. Zaius, Linda Harrison returns as Nova, and Charlton Heston returns, albeit briefly at the beginning and end, as Taylor. Roddy McDowall had other engagements and could not return for this one film to play Cornelius, so David Watson picked up that role. And I would be totally unfair to James Gregory if I didn't mention him, as he plays General Ursus, the best character in the film. So, Beneath the Planet of the Apes is pretty different from the original film. Charlton Heston agreed begrudgingly to appear in the sequel. He only had 8 days of shooting, and part of the contract, so I've read, was that he would have to die in the film, and that was part of part of the obligation, that they would write the script or change the ending so that his character Taylor would die because he didn't want to appear in any more films. What's nice is it does pick up literally seconds after the original film with the same actors, so it's very natural to watch this one right after the original film. And but let's get into the plot, and then we can do a little bit deeper analysis. So, following the events of Planet of the Apes, time-displaced astronaut Taylor and the mute Nova are riding on horseback through the desert of the Forbidden Zone. Without warning, fire shoots up from the ground and deep chasms open. Confused by the strange phenomenon, Taylor investigates a cliff wall and disappears before Nova's eyes. Conveniently, this takes Charlton Heston out of the film for the majority until we see him at the end. Elsewhere in the Forbidden Zone, a second spaceship has crash-landed after being sent to search for Taylor and his crew. Like Taylor's ship, it has traveled into Earth's distant future. However, surviving astronaut Brent believes he has traveled to another planet. This is very similar to how Taylor felt when he landed. He encounters Nova and notices she is wearing Taylor's dog tags. Hoping Taylor is still alive, he rides with her to Ape City, where he is shocked to discover a simian civilization. He observes the gorilla General Ursus leading a rally calling for the apes to conquer the Forbidden Zone and use it as a potential food source, against the objections of the orangutan Dr. Zaius. Brent is wounded by a gorilla soldier and taken by Nova to the home of chimpanzees Cornelius and Zira, who treat his wounds and tell him of their time with Taylor. The humans hide when Dr. Zaius arrives and announces that he will accompany Ursus on the invasion of the Forbidden Zone. Attempting to flee the city, Brent and Nova are captured by gorillas. Ursus orders they be used for target practice, but Zira helps them escape. They hide in a cave, which Brent soon discovers is the ruins of Queensboro Plaza Station of the New York City subway, making him realize he's traveled through time to Earth's post-apocalyptic future. After following a humming sound deeper into the underground tunnels, Brent begins to hear voices telling him to kill Nova. Entering the remains of St. Patrick's Cathedral, he finds a population of telepathic humans who worship an ancient nuclear bomb. Brent and Nova are captured and telepathically interrogated, and Brent reveals the apes are marching on the Forbidden Zone. The telepaths attempt to repel the apes by projecting illusions of fire and other horrors, as they had done with Taylor and Nova. Dr. Zaius sees through the illusions, however, and leads the ape army to the ruined city. With the apes closing in, the telepaths plan to detonate the divine bomb as a last resort. They hold a religious ceremony, at the height of which they remove their masks to reveal that they are in fact still intelligent humans who are descended from survivors of the nuclear wars. The nuclear fallout has mutated them by removing layers of their skin, but greatly increased their psychic abilities. Brent is separated from Nova and taken to a cell where he finds Taylor. The mutant Ongaro uses his telepathic powers to force Brent and Taylor to fight each other to the death. Nova escapes her guard and runs to the cell screaming her first word, "Taylor!" This breaks Ongaro's concentration, freeing Brent and Taylor from his control. Then they overpower and kill him. Brent describes the bomb the mutants worship, and Taylor recognizes as the Doomsday Bomb, capable of destroying the planet, marked with the Greek letters Alpha and Omega on its casing. The apes invade the subterranean city, making their way to the cathedral. One of the apes manages to kill Nova before being killed by Taylor and Brent. They are confronted by Mendez, who raises the bomb into activation position before being gunned down. Brent and Taylor attempt to stop Ursus from accidentally setting off the weapon, but Taylor is shot. Brent manages to kill Ursus before being shot dead by the guerrillas. The mortally wounded Taylor pleads with Dr. Zaius for help, but Zaius refuses, saying that man is only capable of destruction. In his last moment, Taylor brings his hand down on the activation switch, triggering the bomb. The scene whites out and voice-over narration states, "In one of the countless billions of galaxies in the universe lies a medium-sized star, and one of its satellites, a green and insignificant planet, is now dead." So what an ending. Everybody's dead. There was no intention, I have to believe, to continue this franchise. I've read an incredible article from Entertainment Weekly talking about how anti-Hollywood this ending is, where we have no resolution on if Nova was in love with Taylor, if Nova was in love with Brent, no resolution. General Ursus, who hates humans, who's been trying to eradicate them, doesn't get to have any meaningful interaction with any humans, where he maybe sees the error of his ways, and whether he changes or not is up to him. Brent is Nova is just killed out of nowhere. Brent is gunned down, and then Taylor, after hearing a speech about how humans are, all they ever do is cause destruction, just decides to slam his hands down on the Doomsday Bomb activation switch and destroy the whole world. So audiences and critics, didn't really react to this one the same way they had reacted to the original. And certainly, even on my original viewings years ago, it was one that I did not, I wasn't one of my favorites. I still don't know that it's one of my favorites, but it's certainly better than I think it's been given credit for. So let's start at the beginning. So right away, you have, like I said, Taylor and Nova, literally seconds after the first film has ended, and kind of showing where they would go after they discovered the Statue of Liberty. And then there is sort of a plot convenience where this fire and these weird kind of things pop up, and Taylor is able to kind of disappear off screen, so Charlton Heston could go off and film something else or whatever. And then Brent. What's interesting about James Franciscus is that he looks so much like Charlton Heston. It's so obvious. He's actually better looking than Charlton Heston, but he doesn't have that presence and that voice. But they cast someone that looks so similar, and it's so obvious what they were trying to do is bring in someone that would look so similar that it would feel like a continuation. The problem is, by the time they meet at the end, they really are very similar characters, and we actually see Brent go through a sped up version of the events of the original film. Nova takes him to Ape City. They are captured. They're freed. They're on the run. They see the apes. He learns about, oh my God, he can talk. The same basic. We go through the same plot beats. Same beats as the original film, which I'm fine with. It's another astronaut. It's another person who has to be exposed to this world. So it's not, and it's done quick enough and interestingly enough that it's worth watching. I think General Ursus really saves this film in a big way. He's a major villain. He gives this awesome speech about, the only good human is a dead human. He gets all the gorillas worked up, and then you have Dr. Zaius, who's really the villain of the first film, sort of defending humans in a way because he doesn't want Ursus to explore the Forbidden Zone because he doesn't want change. He doesn't want anything to change. That's his whole character motivation. So Ursus is a really just awesome character. His helmet, his presence, everything is great. James Gregory's performance is incredible. And there's this amazing scene with Ursus and Zeus in a spa, like naked with towels, and it's silly and it's fun and the makeup is great and the costumes and the hairy bodies, and it's so interesting like that they would be having this conversation. And of course Zeus agrees to go with Ursus because he wants to try to protect the secret as much as possible or prevent it or whatever. There's another scene where the chimps have all sort of created this protest, this anti-war march that they're doing, and Ursus just like runs right over them, like with the gorillas. Like they don't. Zeus stops them from just like murdering the protesters outright, but Ursus would just kill everyone if he could. He's just like an insane like psychopath. And there's this great action when Brent and Nova are escaping from Ape City, where they're fighting a gorilla like on a stagecoach. And this is the kind of stuff that, in a little way, was missing from the original film. There was no like big action set pieces, and so it definitely has a little bit more momentum in the beginning. And I had a lot of fun with it. I really forgot how great that character of Ursus is, and sort of that a relationship between him and Zeus. And then once we get to the subterranean level and they start showing like Wall Street and other Radio City Music Hall and these other like New York City iconic locations, I mean, these are really great like map paintings and like other design work. I think it all looks incredible. And it's a great way, certainly the subway is everything's taking place in the subway. It's a great way to show like literally beneath the Planet of the Apes. I think it's an excellent title. I think it's a great, I really like the story up until this point. And then things get like really weird. And I think this is where this film may have lost a lot of people. When we start to get into like Mendez and his like bomb worshipping group. So they worship the Alpha Omega bomb, the Doomsday bomb, like the ultimate nuke that's going to destroy the whole world. And they've got it sort of like a shrine built, and they're all praying to it. And they have these psychic abilities, and Brent almost kills Nova because they're controlling him, and they peel their faces off while they're doing their really strange prayer song, like their hymn. And they peel their faces off, and they have like these mutated, like radiated skin, and it's just like really over the top. And at the same time, you've got the apes trying to find the city, and it all culminates with this fight between Taylor and Brent, which is like really violent, and he smashes Brent's like back against some spikes on the cage has spikes on it, and they have this like really UFC cage match. And then everything just at this point you have like 10 minutes of the movie left, and there's been like absolutely no resolution whatsoever on any of the characters. And so the answer, is just to kill everybody. Like literally everybody is just like gunned down and killed, and then literally everybody is killed by the ending bomb. And the is like just stark drop off. Like the film ends, and then it cuts to this like really weird narration. It's so like it's like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre edit. It's just like a very like abrupt edit that's just like an awkward like and uncomfortable, and like okay, I guess the whole world's destroyed. And I mean in some ways, when you think you're ending a franchise and you end it this way, it's like kind of ending it with like, no pun intended, ending it with a bang. But yeah, it just everything happens really fast, with them like everybody gunning everybody down. But there's something like watching it this time. There's something super endearing about it, and like I liked being kind of told the original film story from another seeing it through another astronaut's eyes, and then getting to see like the warlike gorillas and a little bit more of like the factions between the gorillas and the chimps and the orangutans, and then more action, which is exciting. And then yeah, it definitely gets weird, but to me, it's like a good weird. Like it's no different than something you'd see in a Star Trek episode, where this is science fiction. Like people are a little hard on the fact that yeah, they're worshiping, wearing fake skin, worshiping and praying to a nuclear bomb. That is like, you can't get any more like outlandish in science fiction than that. And yeah, so in the end, I actually like this film. And I can see people watching the original film, and it's so tight, and it's so polished, and it's so beautiful, and it's like tells this like emotional story beginning to end. It ends on such a perfect note, and then we jump to this like it's like almost Planet of the Apes light for the first half, and then it just turns into something totally different and really, really out there. So, I think that if you've seen this film in the past, or you've been critical of this film in the past, that it's worth a second look for sure. There's some wonky effects. There's some kind of weird green screen effects, and some of the fire stuff when the fire is leaping up is really weird, and like it gets into all this crazy like religious stuff, and when they're singing that hymn, there's no denying that you're watching something really, really strange. But I still think you look at this through the lens of science fiction, and you have a pretty good film. So my rating for this film, I give it a 7 out of 10. General Ursus is awesome. There's been a ton of art and ton of like cool posters and stuff, and people even have tattoos of General Ursus because he's just such a cool character. It's kind of a shame he doesn't get to do more than what he gets to do in this movie, but it's enough. This is a good film. I think a 7 is a pretty fair score. If anything, I think in watching this in the future, that actually might go up, because I was pretty surprised at how much I enjoyed this film, knowing how much hatred it gets. So there you have it, my review of Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Up next is Escape from the Planet of the Apes, which is a very different genre, and a very different type of film than either of the previous two films. It makes the first two films feel like one long movie, because it's so drastically different. So that review will be up next. And hopefully you enjoyed this. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Looking for feedback on format or other information I can include. So that will certainly be appreciated. So thank you for joining me, and look forward to Escape from the Planet of the Apes.